So we will continue looking at hyperbolas. And so example 2, we're going to graph the hyperbola. So we'll start with this equation, 2x squared minus y squared plus 24x plus 4y equals 28. So in order to graph it, we need to complete the square so that we can get it in that format for the hyperbola, so that it's easy to graph, so we can tell the center and our a and b and all that stuff. All right, so looking at this, our x's, we have 4x squared and 24x. So put those together. And then, so grouping our y's. And then we'll leave the 28 on the right side. Now, with the hyperbola, because we have that minus, it's either x minus or y minus. Since we have a negative in front of a y, it's going to be the y minus. So that's the horizontal, right? So let's go ahead and grab my x. So we'll complete the square for our x's and complete the square for our y's. So here we can take out a 4 from our x's. So we'll try to simplify as much as possible first. Now when we put our parentheses, we need to be careful because this is distributing, so we're going to have a sign change here. So this will become minus 4y, so that when we go back and distribute, we're not changing the value at all. Alright, so to complete the square for this one, so here our middle term is 6x, so we want to take half of that. So half of 6x would be 3, so we'll have plus 3. But when we go through and FOIL this out, we're really adding a 9 inside there. But we need to consider when we distribute this 4, so we're really adding 36 to the left side. So we need to make sure that we're adding 36 to the right as well. And then in our y parenthesis, we have our middle term is negative 4, so half of that is going to be negative 2. And when we FOIL this out, we're adding a 4 to the end. But here we have to remember for our order of operations to distribute the negative, so we're really subtracting 4 from the left side. So we need to subtract 4 from the right side. So now this 28 is no longer a 28. It's really 28 plus 36 minus 4, which is 60. So we're almost finished with getting the equation. So our equation is to equal 1. So we're going to divide the right side by 60, which we need to do to each term on the left side. And so we can simplify this. So 60 divided by 60 is 1. This doesn't, our y does not simplify anymore. So I'll just leave that as the quantity y minus 2 squared. But 4 and 60, that does reduce. And 4 goes into 60, 15, 15. Good. So then we have the quantity x plus 3 squared divided by 15. So this is the equation for our hyperbola. And so we'll use that to get our information to graph. So from this one, we can find our center. So where's the center for this hyperbola? Yep. So our center is going to be at, let's see, our formula is x minus h squared minus y minus k squared so that's our center. To find our vertices, that's going to be h plus or minus a comma k. We know what our a is. Well, we know what a squared is anyway. A squared is 15. Yep, so our a equals square root of 15, since this is a squared. So we'll have negative 3 plus or minus square root of 15, 2. Square root of 15 is some decimal. 3.8. So we'll have negative 3 plus 3.8 and a negative 3 minus 3.8. That negative, so square root of 15 is 3.8.
Oh, yeah, 3.8. So then it's negative 6.
So those are our vertices. So on grid paper, we can do that. I can pull up Desmos here. Alright, so those are the two vertices, and we have our center in between. We can grab those at negative 3 comma 2. So the next thing we need to do is to find our asymptotes. So our asymptotes were at y equals k plus or minus b over a, right? Parenthesis x. Yes. So let's go back to notebook so we can find our asymptotes. So y equals our k is 2 plus or minus b over a x minus h. And our h for this one was negative 3. So we'll add 3. And then we know what our b value is. That is square root of 60. And a is the square root of 15. And so, since these are both square root, we can take 60 divided by 15, which is 4.
Oh, yeah.
And then the square root of 4 is just 2. So this reduces to 2 plus or minus 2 times x plus 3. So we'll break it out into two equations. So we have 2 plus 2 times x plus 3 and 2 minus 2 times x plus 3. And that'll give us our two asymptotes so we know how wide our hyperbola are going to open. So this works out to be 2x plus 8 for 1, and then y equals negative 2x minus 4 for the other one. And that's always a good thing when they go through the center vertice. And so then we can just sketch our hyperbola in where they kind of skate along those asymptotes. I'm going to put the original equation into so we can see them actually graphed in exactly. And so putting the equation in, it matches our vertice and our asymptotes. And so we know we did it correctly. All right, so looking at the next example where we want to write equations given characteristics. So here we're not given an equation and asked to graph it. We're just given certain information and we need to find the equation for that hyperbola. So for example 3a, we want to write an equation for the hyperbola with foci at 1, -5, and 1, 1, and a transverse axis length of 4 units. So since we're given the two foci, we can find the center in between those. So the midpoint between either of those points, and that'll be the center of our hyperbola. So just using midpoint formula, so 1 plus 1 divided by 2, and -5 plus 1 over 2. gives us a point at 1. So negative 4 divided by 2 would be negative 2. So our center for this hyperbola is at 1, negative 2. We're also told that the transverse axis length is 4 units, and the transverse axis is equal to 2a units. So 2a equals the transverse axis length, which we're told is 4. And so this allows us to find our a unit. So a equals 2. And then we can use that to find where our vertices are located, and that's important. Well, it gives us our a for the equation. Since we know where the center is at, we can find C. So here's our center. Since our x coordinates aren't changing, that means that this is a vertical hyperbola. So for the foci, it's h and then k plus or minus c. So we have negative 2 plus or minus some number, and that's going to get us to 1, negative 5, and 1
using the foci formula
to find c. Yep.
So we set it up to where negative 2 is plus or minus something equals 5 equals 1.
Yep. So negative 2 plus something equals 1, and negative 2 minus that same number is going to equal negative 5.
Negative 3. No, 3.
3. So x equals 3, so c equals 3.
And then we can find B.
And now we can, yep. So we know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Since we know a and c, we can get b. So 2 squared plus something equals 3 squared. Well, welcome, Cindy. I'm glad you're not sick. I'm recording for you.
Oh,
So b equals square root of 5, but for the formula, we just need to know what b squared is. So then we can putting it all together. We have our center. So this one we said was vertical. So we have y. What was our center?
1 negative 2.
So we have y minus a negative 2, so y plus 2 squared over
A squared.
a squared, so 2 squared, which is 4, minus plus x. What was our h? 1. So minus 1 squared over our b squared, which is 5, equals 1. So the equation for this particular hyperbola with those characteristics is that. All right, questions there? All right, one more. All right, so the next one, pretty much the same dealio. In this one, we're given the vertices and we're given the conjugate axis length. So from the vertices, we can find the center. So let's do this one. So step 1 is to find the center. So we'll just take the midpoint of our two vertices because the center is going to be halfway between them. Again, this one is a vertical. We have the same x-coordinate, so things are going to be lined up and down. So our center is going to have the same x-coordinate. So we really just need to find the midpoint between 10 and negative 2. So 10 plus a negative 2 is 8. 8 divided by 2, so 4. Alright, so step number 2, let's find our A. We know where the center is now, so now we can find our A. The center, or the vertice, is our center point plus or minus A. So we have our 4 here, so 4 plus or, what do we find it again? We're going to find A. So 4 plus or minus A, and that's going to give us our other 10 or negative 2. So 4 plus A gives us 10, and 4 minus A gives us negative 2.
So 6.
So A equals 6. We're given that the conjugate axis equals 6, and the conjugate axis has a length of 2 times b units. So since we know this equals 2b. And so you can use that to find our b. So for this one, step 3, find b. So 2b equals our conjugate axis length, or in this case, that's 6. B equals 3. So now we know our center, we know what A is, we know what B is, so we can find our equation with that information. So this one was a vertical. So we'll have y minus k, which our k was 4. And our a is 6. So 6 squared is 36. Minus x. And what was our h?
Negative 3 plus 3 squared.
So this is the equation of the hyperbola that's going to give us the above characteristics. All right, questions there?